Hello and welcome to Access All Areas of SEND, the podcast where we delve into the world of special educational needs and disabilities. I'm your host, Tina Emery, and each episode will be shining a spotlight on the stories, experiences and the voices that make SEND communities so unique, resilient and inspiring. Whether you're a parent, carer, educator or simply passionate about inclusion, this is the space for honest conversations, expert insights and practical tips. We'll be talking to people with lived experience, advocates, specialists and trailblazers, all dedicated to making SEND accessible for everyone. From breaking down barriers to celebrating successes, nothing is off limits as we explore what it really means to access all areas within SEND. So join us as we listen, learn and grow together. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Now, let's get started. Grab a cuppa and open the doors to access all areas of SEND. Hello and welcome to Access All Areas of SEND, the podcast. Today I'm joined by Liz, Kelly, Sian and Joe. We are going to talk about what it's like to be a parent carer. And if you don't know what a parent carer is, it's a parent that is an adult with parental responsibilities who provides unpaid day-to-day care and support for a child or a young person with additional needs and or disability. This role involves both typical parental duties and specific care tasks, which can include physical and medical care like tube feeding or catheter, etc., and is managing behaviours and assisting with household chores. Parent carers do have specific rights. So hello and thank you for joining me today. So do you ever think that you are a parent carer in the beginning when you first found out that your child had additional needs? Did you think of yourself as a parent carer from the start?
No, not really. No, not at all. I just thought that's my child, and that's it really. I didn't really think about it as a role. I just thought it as like anybody else. You have children and you're the parent. So that's
it's the same with us as well. I never I didn't consider anything like that. I was just looking after my daughter. I was just looking after my child. Yeah. And that was it really.
Yeah. But do you think of yourself as doing like extra stuff more than I don't want to say normal parent, because I don't mean that in the true sense of the word, but like parents who've got children with no additional needs? Do you think you go over and above what they do sometimes?
Yeah, I think for me, all the extra things that you don't realise that you're doing, it does add up. And sometimes when you're with people who don't have children with additional needs, you kind of think, wow. For example, it's like it isn't just the physical stuff that you're doing, it's like the other things as well. Like the treading on eggshells, checking people's regulation all the time. How are they feeling? Is this a good time to ask for this to be done? Can we do this now? But I need to plan ahead with this because I need to do this, and it's all the extra mind work that goes into it as well. And I think that is definitely an extra thing. It definitely leads to burnout and things like that.
Yeah. And also when you've got children with really complex needs, additional needs, and you've got more than one, that can be quite tricky to manage as well, because they all have different needs. They all want different things at different times. Then you add in your extra sort of parents or your sort of additional family members, and that can cause issues in itself as well, trying to manage all of everybody's expectations. Like if you've got your mum's birthday party or something and it's a special date and you've got your kids with additional needs and they don't want to go, so what do you do and how do you manage family expectations around that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I just always used to dread every time like a party or like a day out was coming up, because I would just think, oh my God, am I going to be able to, is Lenny going to be able to cope? What's going to happen? Is he going to kick off? the anxiety. So 9 times out of 10, you normally just don't end up going, and then you start to feel isolated. Because unfortunately, there are some families that are amazing and so helpful, but then you do get families that just don't have a clue, and that puts the more added pressure on.
I think my experience has been that when my children were born, and I've got 3 boys that were born like about roughly 2 years apart, all of them. So I was like 1, 2, 3, then I had 3 boys. They all kind of normal, healthy children to a point. They were pretty active, but they, that was normal family. Felt like that was fine. And then the problems started to creep up. So it was that as they, it's the behaviours that people think are unacceptable. So as children get older, it sort of creeps up on you, that kind of disapproval that you get from others. So we always went to like a Sunday school with the kids, and I remember my middle son, who's the one whose behaviours are more sort of outward behaviours, he kind of got excluded from the group, and that really hurt. So there were a number of things that happened over time, over a period of years. So I think, it takes time to sort of get to that point where, for example, that same son ended up being excluded from school when he was 13. And he needed me to be there. That was then, I think that was the point I was like, oh, I'm not just a parent anymore. This is more than that now. But it took even more time for me to sort of be able to ask for help, for example, financial help or something like that, because realizing that you're not able to work like other parents with children the age that my children are. Both parents can work full time. That's fine. We can't run our family like that. There has to be someone around all the time, just make sure everything's okay, or to deal with things when they come up. So it's built up slowly, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's really pertinent, actually, to the next question that I was going to ask was, the work side of things, because as I know I was flexible in my work. I got different jobs to fit around my children for exactly the same reason, Liz, was that, your careers can change. And I know some people on this call, I know that that's happened to, because you have to do things to fit in with your children, because normal work practices are not very flexible when it comes to us needing medical appointments or attending school, or if your child is excluded, how do you manage the work expectations then? And I think that's what we also don't realise when we step into that parent carer world, how different it can be. And I think it's not just in our work life, and I know everybody on the call has done different things in their work life to fit in around their children, but it's the expectations of others. Why are you not working? Are you claiming benefits? Why have you got this part-time job? Your kid's old enough, they just need to stand on their own 2 feet. And it just it's so wrong, actually, because we're just doing what we are trying to do to manage and be the best parents that we can be.
Yeah,
so
I feel sometimes you're lambasted if you work,
Yeah.
because you're not available to do all of these things. And
Yeah.
then if you're not working, why not working? You sat at home all day when they're at school. Well,
Yeah.
you can't win no matter what you do.
So if we've got some parents who are listening to this and didn't realise that they're a parent carer and do have children with additional needs, so they are, and they are literally sat there at home having been talked to or talked about by anybody. It could be a family member, it could be their friends, it could be parents on school gate, or no, there's that parent with that child. What would you say to that parent that's maybe listening to this podcast and thinking, actually, that's me? Oh my God, that's me. What would you say to them? What would you say to give advice?
I would say to the people, come and step in our shoes for 24 hours. Is
24 hours? I don't think they'd last 24 hours, Kel.
I've been a single mum. I've got two kids. My youngest has got various needs. I became a parent carer when he was 4. I used to work. I worked all my life until Lenny was 4. And yeah, I gave up my full-time job and I've become his carer, and he's going to be 17 next week, and I'm still his parent carer because unfortunately Lenny is a child that he can't come home after school and be left. He can't be left in the evenings. He can't be left at the week. I can't leave him at all. And when you that support group, when you don't have that village, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And again, like Tim said, the amount of times Lenny was excluded, the amount of times that they would call me, come and pick him up half days. There's no way I would have been able to have held a job down, So no, I had to do what was right for my child. No regrets. I've been there for him. So no regrets at all.
No, I completely agree. I think it is a case if you've just got to do what fits for you, isn't it? What fits for you. If it fits for you to stay at home, stay at home.
Yeah.
Because I think you feel guilt in the end as well, because there's times when, for example, you have got appointment, you've got all these things, even when you're working, you've still got all the appointments to do, you've still got well, it's just all the appointments, the chasing up appointments, the chasing this up, chasing that up, all these other bits and bobs. You've still got to do all of that, even though that you're working. And then you feel like you're relying on other people, don't you? So when you do have to go and do something, could I leave the kids with you? Or can I leave this one with you, this child with you because they can't come to this thing? Or can I leave this person with you because I can't fetch her while they're doing this? You feel really guilty. You're like, God, I'm putting on everybody else and I should be able to manage all this on my own. Because I don't know about anybody else, but my husband works away. So I am away I am on my own during the week. And I've got a brilliant mother-in-law who does absolutely far too much for me. But the guilt you feel for putting on people, for helping you, and you do feel like you should be able to do it all by yourself because you see all these other people going off doing it themselves. Why can't I do that? But there's only one there's only one me. I can only be me.
I think everybody's situation is so different, isn't it? It's, but it's the difficult stuff is common to all of us. So like perceiving other people's expectations, and it's not always voiced. It's like, you might get someone say something about you or to you, might hear someone's been talking about you. I don't think I've ever been aware of that happening, but I have this perception of it, that must be what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And so even if it's not, you haven't heard of it, it's just there, isn't it? And it's that,
it's
seeing what other people do and comparing yourself to others. But I think, it's inevitable that people sort of fall into that, because when you become a parent, you've got this set idea of what being a parent will be like. And you sort of have expectations for yourself and for your child. And then when it's not working out like that, it's a process of grieving that you go through, sort of a constant grief process. When you see other children going to the prom, for example, and like, neither of my 2 older ones went to the prom. We'll see if the third one does. I don't know if he will, So it's, you see the photos put on Facebook or what, you think, just all these small things, and just, it's tough not to feel bad about that and bad about yourself. But I think linking up with others is really key. Finding other people in similar circumstances, or just people that seem to understand. And having compassion for yourself, giving yourself permission. If it's just that you're not managing whatever job it is at the time, that's okay. There is support. I managed to apply for disability living allowance at one point and managed to get that support because of the level of, the amount of time, just by stating the amount of time and supervision and making sure that he'd eaten, or making sure, that you were safe, if he just disappeared out and we didn't know where he'd gone and things like that. People don't usually think that those are sort of the sorts of things that you could request support for financially, but you can, without exaggerating, just honestly fill in that PLA form and get some help, which, you know, it might be not be enough to sort of cover what your loss of earnings might be, but it is a bit of help, and you can give yourself permission. That's what helped me, just saying I am allowed to not work. I am allowed to just take time because I need to look after myself as well as my child.
I think in a way it's like, for me, it's I just going back about going to sort of social events. So my child, he didn't like balloons, so in a way I had to always ask if there were going to be balloons at a party, and if there was, then he couldn't go, because as soon as he saw a balloon, he'd run out the door. So it was kind of a bit like, you have to, as Joe was saying, you have to always have them like mentally prepare all the time.
100%.
wherever they go, it's like, have they got this, have they got that, have they got this? Okay, we're
Like,
not
carry a
going to
little
go.
bag around with you, all the things that you need, that you may possibly need.
Yeah, and it's just so mentally it's exhausting, because you're kind of getting into their head and how they're feeling all the time. And he, you know, my son's got really bad anxiety, so I sort of feel like I've got his anxiety, because I'm always trying to think like he is, which is fine, and I don't mind that at all. And but also I think it's the little wins for parents. So with food, my son was very specific about the food he used to eat, and I used to always want him to eat pizza, because I thought, oh, pizza would be so nice for him to eat because it's so easy. But it didn't. I think he was 9 when he tried it, and he liked it. I think I tried it before, but he was like, no. And for me, it's that's a sort of realization where you're like, okay, most kids are eating pizza by now, and it's quite easy for mum to put a pizza in the oven and give it to the kids, and I couldn't do that. And when he ate it, I was so happy, and I went round, I think, telling everybody, oh, he's eating pizza, and I was like, okay, this is not probably what normal parents do. And I think that's when you realize it's small wins that make your life a little bit easier, and other parents aren't having to go through that. But they do come like gradually. You know, he's sort of 20 now, but they do come, the small wins do come. And I felt like the issues change, but now he's sort of 19. There's kind of, I don't think we can go through anything else, to tell you the truth. I think we've reached everything that I need to know about him to make sure he's okay and to decrease his anxiety. But yeah, I think if you're a parent at the gate, you know, as a small child, I think, you know, it does get easier. And the other parents who may be looking at you, I used to always think, you know, there's a lot of children out there with additional needs or physical needs or loads of other kids that you don't see. Just because your child is, you know, neurotypical, you are then actually not thinking about so many other children in the world. And I find that they're quite ignorant, to tell you the truth, and they are very you know, if you don't fit into this mold that they've created for them, for a child to be in, then you've basically eradicated a lot of children, and they won't even talk to them. And I remember talking to one parent. I said, oh yeah, they've got one of my son's friends, he had a lot of physical problems and he had to go to the hospital, and I don't know what he had blood transfusions, or we had something going on. And I was talking to this parent, and she said, oh well, that's not, I don't want to know about that, don't tell me about that. And I just thought, that's really rude. And I just felt like they just didn't really care about anything. And I just thought, I don't really want to be talking to you, because you just don't have any empathy at all to any child, even if they've got a physical problem or they've got issues going on. You know, the children who've got cancer when they're really small, I'm just like, that's terrible. And this parent was just not interested. I was just like, and I felt just like, I don't want to talk to you. You're not my sort of person. So I think you've got to be really strong, and you've got to realise these people are quite ignorant. and they just blanket any child that doesn't fit into the norm, and that's physical and sort of additional needs. So those are the people you want to keep away from. That's what I can say. Yeah,
but that's quite tricky to do. But I'm glad you brought it up, because I do think that when I remember when I thought my child was autistic, and it was quite a few years before the diagnosis, as normally the case even now. And I remember a friend, and I thought she was a good friend, sort of pulled me to one side and said, "But do you think that they are autistic, or do you just think that they're badly behaved?" And I just thought, to have that conversation, Kelly's nodding her head, so you've had those as well. And I think, and it goes back to Liz's point as well about the grieving process, because we do say, when people do get their diagnosis for their child, and the idealistic thoughts about, where you see your child in the future, whether they're with a partner, whether they're in a full-time job that they love, whether they are buying a house, or whether they're just happy, they're just genuinely happy. And then you get this diagnosis, and the thoughts then of, oh my God, they're not going to do what I think they're going to do. Then plus the people that you've just talked about, Sharm, and I've met at least one, and I know of speaking to other families, they've met at least one person just exactly like that. And I know of family members as well that have been exactly like you've said. So how do you manage that when you're trying to get your head round, your child has been diagnosed, or you've had your confirmation that there is needs there. So we're not just talking about diagnosis, we're talking about somebody having a conversation with you and saying, well, actually, I think your child might be this. That initial conversation is hard, isn't it? I remember weeping for nearly days, not because I was sad that that he was autistic, but actually the years that I'd said he was, and being either told that he wasn't, or being told I was a bad parent, or being told he was just naughty, the realization of actually everything that I'd said was true. And I want to talk a very little bit about gaslighting, because families are now saying that, and I hate the word professional, because I think we're all professionals. We're all professionals of our children. There's clinicians and practitioners who are also deemed as professionals in their field. But, when people just don't listen to you and they tell you that it's you, how do we deal with that, in our own heads? It's difficult, it's hard. But I would imagine that everybody in the room and those that are listening have had experience of this gaslighting. Everybody's nodding. Absolutely. So how do we deal with this?
I think I was in Lancashire at the time when he was at nursery, and it was picked up really quickly, because I was just a bit like, there's something going on here, and they actually picked it up really quickly. So he started his journey when he was really we picked up about 15 months old. So he started his journey through the system when he was 18 months. I said you can't refer him until he's 18 months. So his journey started quite quickly, and it was from his nursery. So I didn't really have to fight that much, to tell you the truth. So I haven't had that experience. So yeah, I was lucky, I suppose.
Liz, did you want to come in?
Yeah, there's different circumstances, isn't it? It is. And for example, when a child is born and is immediately diagnosed at birth, that's a different situation. And there might be points where there is conflict between you and perhaps a school about how support is arranged in the school, or they have different opinions to how things should be dealt with. That does come up, I imagine. But yeah, it's different with what they call them hidden disabilities, don't they? So it's a person visually looks like most other people, but the behaviours or the responses, the way they communicate is different. And that's where the gaslighting can happen. And I've had some very difficult meetings with high up, so what do they call them? Head teachers of schools, very uncomfortable situations. One meeting where I'd written a letter to the head teacher really expressing my disappointment with the school for excluding my child almost daily into the isolation room in the school, and strongly criticising that practice. And the head teacher arranged for a meeting and arranged about 6 of the senior leadership team to encounter us. So I'm glad my husband came with me, and we went in, but we were faced with this wall of suits, and it's so intimidating. Very defensive responses to what we were saying, which were genuine concerns about whether our son was accessing education at all in that school. So it's it's an individual situation to everyone, and it's when you've got I know people whose children are not managing to attend, and they're similarly gaslighted, if you like, by staff who are making them feel as if they're just not trying to get their child into school. It's very difficult to have the confidence to face up to senior leadership people who are extremely critical. The language that's used really difficult, and they're usually very articulate as well. And I find it quite difficult to explain myself, and I know what I think, but I don't. It's hard to express it, and lots of parents find that difficult and very, very intimidating.
Yeah, I agree. I know of lots of parents who struggle with those types of meetings, especially when you're faced with an enormous amount of school staff and it's just you and maybe one other person if you're lucky. If you're not, and it's just you against them, it's horrendous. But I will touch on the physical disability, because I know of lots of parents, and you're right, about if you haven't got a physical disability and you can't see what it is, they just focus on the behaviour, not what's making that behaviour. But I do know of families whose children have got a physical disability and are equally not heard because, well, they've got that disability and that is why they're they are. And, they can be in, I'm just thinking off the top of my head around one family that I know really, really well. And it's all right that, they're doing this because of this. And it's like, but they're in pain. Well, yeah, but it's just part of that. And it's like, how is that fair? And you're trying to manage this as a parent, and you've got a child in front of you who is in pain through a physical disability or a complication of that physical disability. But they're not taking it seriously, because in them, well, they're just like, well, they can't be in that much pain. It doesn't hurt that much. Do you know what I mean? And as an advocate for our children, it's our job, isn't it, to say to them, actually, no, I don't agree with you. But for a parent's point of view, they are often looking at somebody that they deem as a professional, an expert in their field, and they are telling them that actually that didn't happen, and actually, or it doesn't happen to that extent. Then we've got a problem, haven't we? Because no one is being taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I can firsthand say my daughter, she's got Down syndrome, and she's 14 now. She'll be 15 next year, and throughout her entire life, everything has been put down to the fact that she's got Down syndrome. She snores really bad. She keeps waking up in the night. She's up 5, 6, 7, 8 times a night. Oh, it's because she's got Down syndrome. She's probably got adenoids and this anything. And now she's got a very painful hip condition. She had some major surgery a few years ago, and she's going to have some more probably this year. But it took me 2 years for the GPs to take me seriously about a hip condition. Every time I went, oh yeah, it's because she's got low muscle tone. It's a Downs thing. Literally, they told me it's a Downs thing. It took me about 2 years to be taken seriously. And And yes, she does have a really serious hip condition, and she's in an awful lot of pain, and it's awful. And even now, you obviously get stuck in the waiting list, the hospital appointments, all these things you get stuck in. And still, you're like, she's in an awful lot of pain. What shall I do? I don't know what to do. What can I do? She's in a lot of pain. We've dropped her hours down at school, to try and ease things up a little bit. But it is like medical gaslighting. For 2 years, we went through the whole, oh, it's not that bad. It's okay. How can they tell me that my daughter's not in pain? I can see her not walking. I can see her sat on the floor. It's not a behaviour. This isn't just a behaviour. This is pain that I'm seeing. And they weren't listening to me.
That's across the board though, Jo, isn't it? Like, how dare we know more about our children than the professionals in front of us?
I know the difference between pain and a behaviour. I know the difference.
And actually behaviour might be the cause of the pain. It's a similar thing to communication. It's sometimes it's an unmet need, or it's about the fact that they can't articulate what they need to say, and so we'll sometimes act out. Exactly. But the first focus is the behaviour.
Exactly. And even now, she still doesn't communicate her pain. In fact, she doesn't really. Her emotions, she's not very good at verbalising her emotions. You'll tend to see the behaviours rather than, until you actually get down to what the emotion is. But she won't tell us that she's in pain until she gets to the point where she is absolutely in agony. And then she'll freak out about it. But that pain's probably been brewing all day long and she's not said anything. She may have misbehaved, had a bad attitude. She might have not been very kind to people throughout the course of the day, but that is boiling down to the pain that she's in all the time.
And this is the tricky thing, isn't it? Is that over so in the beginning you might be accepting of that, decision making or those conversations, but then as time goes on and we're living it day to day, we then get angry and cross and be known as the difficult parent. But that actually, if that's what you need to do in order to get to fit, then you become that difficult parent, wouldn't you?
Yeah, there's been lots of times I've looked like an idiot having a strap at doctors and stuff, but I think you need to sometimes. You have to.
But the thing is being a parent carer, like those are the moments and those are the minutes and the hours that add up and add up and add up and add up and add up. And it's not because we're doing anything wrong. We are taking them to the doctors, we are doing going to school, and we are doing everything we can. And I'm not saying other children who are neurotypical have maybe they do, maybe they do have problems, maybe the parents do have to go to the school all the time. I'm not sort of saying that's, but what I'm saying is, it's like, if you've got a neurotypical child, then it's easier for professionals to go, okay, yeah, this is what it is. When you've got a child who's got additional needs, they just see it as that's the problem, and they don't actually see, we need to understand what this child's going through, and so it will take them a little bit longer to actually understand what they need. So we've got to do the work for the professionals, but then when we do that, we don't even get heard. So it's like we've got additional time, because we're always fighting, and all we want is somebody just to sort of say, okay, let me understand this, and then that's it. And when you do find that golden nugget, because there are people out there, professionals who are like the golden nugget, and you do find them, and then they go, yeah, I totally get it, and you just go, thank goodness, and they help you. But finding those people is so difficult. But when you do, then it's great.
And I'm glad you mentioned about the fighting, because people talk about the parental fight but don't actually know what that word means and what it actually is. Do you know what I mean? Exactly what you've just said, Sean, is that it's just the appointment, the meeting, the conversation, the appointment, the meeting, the conversation, where you're just repeating yourself time and time and time again, and no one's listening.
You question your own sanity, don't you? Thinking, I'm sure I've done this already.
Do you know what? I wrote it down in a 2-page document. I wrote it down. I was just like, and then I just handed it to people and went, here you go. so they could read it in like 5 minutes and go, right, let's just cut to the chase now and get this sorted out. And it's just like, it just made my life easier. And people, I think professionals were like, oh, right, okay. Because
she's one of them. They probably
she's one of them.
Yeah. But I remember once it was kind of, it was basically about lack of access to services in our area, and I was really struggling. I think I'd just given birth to my third child. I think Lucy was probably about 6 months, 7 months, something like that. And our Grace basically got barred from this. It was like a youth club sort of thing, really, because she was getting into mischief and they didn't know how to handle her. And yeah, so she said, they said she can't come anymore unless there's somebody with her. And I was obviously like really tired. She was up like numerous times a night. Had a young baby. I had a 5-year-old as well. I was like clinging on by a thread to sanity, and I went and had a massive strap at my MP. And I feel sorry for this MP even now, because I must have made a right fool of myself. And I did. I left my husband came home and I went, right, I've had enough of this, because there was nowhere to go for my children to go during the school. Well, for her to go during the school holidays, so I could just get a bit of a break. I just wanted a few hours. That's all I wanted. A few hours where the baby could have a nap, where I could have a drink, a cup of coffee, maybe do a bit of washing, get on top of things. And she wasn't allowed it. So yeah, I went into the local town hall looking like a crazy lady, and just shouted at my MP. I'm really embarrassed. And every time I see him now, I'm really embarrassed. He probably thinks, that's crazy lady.
This is what you have to do. But this is what you have to do sometimes. And people don't realise, do they, that actually that minute thing to them, not to you, but to them, is huge to you. It actually is massive, isn't it?
It literally brought the camel's back.
Yes.
At that point.
Yeah.
I remember looking at all the poems I had a lot of poems from like just other children had written sort of how they feel, or they were adults and how they felt as a child and their additional needs. And I remember sending a poem to the school and saying, can you just send this to every single teacher and assistant teacher and anybody else who works within the school system, so they can understand children with like additional needs, and they can just let it sink in, so that when they approach the adults at school, they can just give them a little bit more attention. Like, I'm not asking for like 10 hours, it's just a few more minutes, so you can go, okay, I'm going to have to give this person a little bit more time to process, time to think about what they need, and that's it. It's like, it's not hard. And I actually did that, and they did actually send it around to everybody in the school. But I just thought, and it was a nice poem, but they're just not trained to understand.
And I think this is the timing, isn't it? Is that it's across the board. It's not just schools. Like, everybody's rushed. There's time constraints. There's financial constraints, and all the while we're in the middle of it, trying to manage our family's needs. And if you've got children, husband, wife, partner, whatever, every single person within your family cell has different needs. Even if you're a single parent, you have different needs to your children. That's inevitable. But how you manage that is really, really tricky, and it can be a difference between sink and swim. You can have a good day if you handle it really well, or a bad day if you don't. And it's on those days that you don't. And I think we sort of slightly touched on it a little bit in these conversations around, looking after yourself and your own health and well-being. And it's often an analogy that I use around aircraft, when you go on a plane, and they say to put your mask on before you put your kids' masks on. And that is relevant to us. We have to look after ourselves, because if we don't, who else is going to look after our families? Who else is going to look after our children? Who else is going to look after our parents, for instance, if we've got elderly parents as well? And I suppose it's that guilt, isn't it, of wanting to just be able to go and do something for ourselves, even if it's just a walk in the woods, to get away from the hustle and bustle. We're not talking, a spa day every week. We're not talking about going out for a nice meal or whatever every day. It's just something minute that just gives you that breathing space. Exactly what you said, Jo, about, your daughter being able to go off to a youth club. Just to give you that break so you can catch up on your washing. I mean, it's not even a break for you, is it? But
no, but it makes
mentally,
you feel better when you've done your washing.
Yes, exactly. No, I get that. I love clean washing. It just fills me with like joy, the smell of
you
it.
You feel like you're winning at life when you've got nothing.
Yes. When your washing basket's slightly empty, but never fully empty, and it's never fully empty for long. So what would you say to families, parent carers who are just like, well, I'd love to do that, but I just haven't got time. I would love to do that, but I have no support. What would you say to them? Because it is really important, isn't it, that they look after themselves?
Yeah, I've been, again, it was a big fight for me, but I'm very lucky. I get respite with my son. I know that's not for every family, and I know, again, it's a big fight to get it. It wasn't easy for me. They denied it at the start, and then it got to a point where I was at breaking point. Then they were like, "Oh, we can help you." But again, I'm a single parent. Just having that time to be me, just taking my dog for a walk, and also I've, when you've got other children, having to support them as well, and try and be the best mum to them, and do, again, I don't want to say normal things, but you know what I mean, do things with them.
Things like normal things, like go to the supermarket, go and do your shopping at Tesco rather than doing an online shop, because you can't face going into Tesco with 3 children. Yeah.
Again, it's just so important that anything, just that little bit is so important. Just to be Kelly, just an hour. But yeah, I am really lucky. I do get really good respite package, but I know that's not easy for everyone to access that.
It took you a long time to get to that point where you could access it, isn't it? I think with everyone's situation, it's different, and it's sort of, you might have a bit of a long struggle before you can allow yourself to ask for help, and then see what there is and see how you can put it together, because it might be through family or friends, it might be through some services, but it just, first step is realizing that you'd benefit from a little bit of help, a bit of space for yourself.
I don't know I really don't know what would have happened to me. I'll be totally honest with you, if I didn't have that support and respite put in, because it's tough. It's so tough.
I think also, if when you reach out, I mean, when I moved down here, we had a social worker allocated, and then they had to come and see us, and they just gave us all the information, like a booklet of all sorts of stuff that you can do. So I don't know if people, if that's still the case. I don't know how it works now, because this is sort of like 12, 13, 14 years ago. And I think if you go to the groups that are available to you, that really helped me, because I kind of go and talk to other parents. The children could run around and be completely do their thing, and nobody sort of judges you at all, and they're actually sort of more sympathetic. They're very sympathetic, and they're like, oh, he does that, does he? Yeah, so does mine. And it's just like, oh, okay, this is, you feel able to be normal, be you again. And it took me a while to sort of reach out and go to these groups, because I was like, oh, what are people going to think? And then as soon as I stepped out, I realised actually I'm not alone. But it's just getting the courage to step out. And obviously we had the camp where I met you, Tina, and Kelly, and that was amazing. I used to love those for the weekend, because it was just everybody, all the kids was just just doing their thing, and all the parents were just like,
being parents,
totally,
being human.
Parents, we were just like, well, that's, you know, you having a meltdown because something's happened, but there was no, you know, it was more like, let's just see how she is in a minute, you know, after a couple of hours, and you go over there, how's everything going, and are you okay? And you just sort of feel like you sort of be seen as a parent and as you, and you're not just that child's parent. You're like, actually, how are you coping with everything? And although you might not have the respite, it makes you realize that there are a lot of people out there who do understand, and they see you as a woman who is struggling with the children, or a child who's got additional needs, and you are finding it difficult. So yeah, I mean, even that aspect really helped me to be able to know what I was going through, and that, you know, I was still a person. So yeah,
I think one thing that really can be very, very powerful in those kinds of situations, if it's possible for a parent to access a group where children are able to be together while the parents are able to be together, is when parents start to get children and actually really like them and say kind things to them, or saying kind things about them, and like building those relationships in a way where everybody is like okay with what's going on, and like, okay, somebody's bitten someone, oh well, oh, you know, and it's not like a big deal. It's okay when things go wrong, and people are understanding about it, and actually care about you and your child, accepting your child for who they are. I think that's incredibly powerful. Those kinds of groups are brilliant, and it's not easy to set them up. I think it's hard for people to find each other, especially in areas that are a bit more sparsely populated. You know, different areas have different provision, don't they? You know, sometimes these things can be set up by local authorities, but the schools are not very good at helping people to find each other, are they?
Yeah.
Especially when
we're part of a charity. Me and Grace, we're part of a charity. I was a trustee for the charity, but I've had to step down because life's just too hectic. But they've been brilliant, and we've been with them now since Grace was about 3. So Grace has grown up with the children. She goes to school with many of the children, and I'm friends with the mums. So it's turned into like a friendship group for me as well as her. And it's been really nice. It's been lovely. Yeah.
A person, not seen just as a mum. You're like, I am me, and
yeah.
Although you haven't got although you haven't got the respite, that becomes quite powerful because you see yourself as you again, and that's really nice. So
see, push the children and just see what they can do. You know, like we've done lots of activities with them, archery activities, bowling, cinema, all sorts of things. But it's lovely. Like now she's a teenager, seeing the teens sat together doing things themselves. It's so lovely, and you think they've grown up together. And if it wasn't for that group, they wouldn't some of them might not have known each other as well as they do. They might have met through school, but not have the same relationship that they have now. It's really nice to see. Lovely.
I remember being on a train in London. Actually, I was on my way to work, and this parent, well, it was a family actually. They were on the way to Harry Potter World. And there was a lad, and he was wearing, and I can't remember the sort of, you know, with Harry Potter, they're all in like houses, aren't they? With, you know, Gryffindor and Slytherin or whatever they're called. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, and apologies. But he was so excited that he was going to Harry Potter World, and he had his tie on, and he was stimming. So I instantly knew he was autistic, right? His dad was quite chilled, and his mum was a little bit anxious because he was making noises, and it was on the tube and it was on the train, and she wasn't embarrassed, but she was a little bit concerned about people's thoughts and processes towards her son. So she was being protective. And I turned to him and asked him, you know, you're excited, what are you going to do? Where are you going? And he was telling me about Harry Potter World and what his house was and what he was going to do. And he was so excited. And his mum, I was getting off at the next stop, and his mum apologised to me for him being a slight nuisance to my day. And the relief on her face when I said, I've got an autistic 20-year-old, it's fine, he's good, he's pleasant, he's polite, he's excited, have a great day. And the relief on her face, because to her, everybody else who'd reacted to her son previously had been, not everybody, but some had been in a negative way. And so you could just see the relief of somebody that's like, oh my God, I don't have to apologise. They get him. They understand what he's doing, the movements, the hand movements. It was just a pure example of what stimming looks like. And exactly what you've just said, Joe and Sean, around the acceptance of other groups. I mean, I ran a guide group for 10 years, and we had probably 90% of the girls who attended had additional needs, whether it was dyslexia or sensory processing autism or ADHD. And we also had somebody with Down syndrome as well. And it was so lovely where the girls helped and supported all the girls to achieve their badges. It wasn't an individual thing. We all did it together. And I even took them to London to watch a concert that the Guiding UK put on. And it was in Wembley Stadiums, and there was 35,000 guides in a room. It was noisy, let me just say. But the fact that everybody was welcome, including the girl with Down syndrome, who we had a wheelchair for. We did. But it's the acceptance, isn't it, of that's what we want for our kids. We just want them to be accepted for who they are, to be able to live the life that they choose within reason, as long as it's safe, and to be happy. So that would be my advice to anybody who's listening to this podcast, thinking, well, how can I help? Just, treat people with respect, including the children and young people, and just give them some space. If they're not doing things in the timely manner as you would expect, just give them a bit of slack, just let them do what they need to do, and they will come along with you. But just don't force people to do things in your time. It's a lot for us to deal with every day. The moment we wake up, and parents will literally live second by second sometimes. It's not minute by minute, it's not day by day, it's second by second. They are dealing with a multitude of different things. And sometimes, even as a parent carer, I am in awe of other parents who've got children with additional needs because of what they do every day. And, it's a lot, and it's a huge achievement. And even to get up in the morning, sometimes it's a huge achievement. Don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah, definitely. You're doing a great job.
I sometimes think there's always people who are worse off. When you're feeling sorry for yourself, I always try and perk myself up. There's always people who are worse off than what we are. And it's all right. It's not, everything is, it's okay. It'll be okay. Everything's all right. It'll be okay. But it's just step back a bit.
Yeah.
Look at the bigger picture.
And it might not be the way that you envisaged in the beginning, but that's okay, actually. The fact that you're breathing, you're living, all right, you might not be living in the true sense of the word because you're literally going from moment to moment, but you are here, you are present. Just cut yourself some slack, isn't it? Speak to somebody. Don't suffer in silence. Go and chat to somebody and just offload for that 5 minutes just to get your head out of that situation. Exactly what you've just said, Joe, about getting your head out of that for a minute and then coming back into it. It always works best, doesn't it? And I'm hoping that somebody's going to listen to this and go, that's me, and actually I am doing a really good job. It's just not how I envisaged it going, but actually that's all right.
But also I was going to say also, I think as your child gets, if you have a baby and it obviously gets older, you don't realise how much you put into that child, as in the more headspace you have to do, and you have to think about everything before they go out the door. And okay, all parents have to do that, but with a child with additional needs, or a few children with additional needs, it's like you have to add on at least an hour or two
Sometimes it's a day, Sean.
Or a day. But that's what I'm saying. From my experience, it's like I have to, I do actually have to prepare like maybe 3 days before. So it's but actually getting them out of the house is so it's okay,
isn't it?
It's okay, it's okay to do that, and we've all gone through that, and we get it, and so and it does creep up because you just think it's normal, and it is for us. That is normal for us, and you are doing such an amazing job, but at times it is nice to step back and go, actually, give myself a pat on the back. I'm flipping amazing. And I'm gonna really, and it is difficult, and it is difficult, and you do get sad, and you do go on this emotional roller coaster, and the ups and downs are probably more difficult for parents who've children with additional needs because of the grieving, and because what's going to happen in the future, and how's it going to pan out, and are they going to be okay, and but you're honestly. People who've got even you, Liz, who've got 3 children, I'm just like that. Whoa, I'm like, hats off to you. Like, that is amazing. I mean, I've only got one, and I just couldn't imagine some of the parents, and I've spoken to some parents, and I'm just like, you deserve, I don't know what you deserve, but you deserve something amazing. And I mean, you just got to keep going. But you're amazing. Everybody's amazing who's got children who've got additional needs or additional physical needs.
So someone said to me recently about it might be helpful to consider having a kind of a spiritual view of all of our experiences, and that whatever's happened is what was meant to happen in our life. Not kind of about things being predetermined or something like that, and it's all written for us, but it's about, every experience that we have, everything that happens, the children that we gave birth to, the lives that we have somehow have kind of happened around us, and we're part of that life, and some of the decisions we make, all of that was kind of the right thing. That was the right thing. Our children are perfect as they are. The things that have happened were supposed to happen, and it's all unfolding in the right way. And rather than fighting with that and sort of, it shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't be like that, and feeling hard done by, I think it's quite an interesting way to see things, and see kind of all the difficulties that we're having and we've had. They're sort of bringing us learning and understanding about the world. We've become so knowledgeable about so many things. Think about all the things that we've learnt, and we're learning all the time. It's a gift, really. I think all these things are a gift, and we can learn so much from them.
Yeah, I would just want other people to learn from our children too.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
They're missing out, aren't they? If they're
for sure
close-minded to that.
For sure. Yeah. Well, that's a perfect ending. Thank you, ladies, for joining me on this podcast today. Do really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on Access All Areas of SEND, the podcast, brought to you by Emery Knowles Consulting. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode and it's given you new insights and practical ideas to support inclusion. If you found this episode helpful, please click subscribe, leave us a review or share with someone else. For more resources and updates, follow Emery Knowles Consulting on Insta, Facebook and TikTok. We will be back soon with more personal experiences, strategies and voices from across the SEND landscape. Until the next time, keep championing inclusion for all.